Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another night here at the WCTV studio of Spirit Connections. My name is Tiffany Rice, Spirit Medium.
And I'm Stephanie Burke, Spirit Medium. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm very excited. As I start out with every show, I say about every guest, I'm very excited. And tonight we have recurring guests, special guests, Christine Downs and Joe Chin.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having us, guys. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thanks for joining us.
No
We had a
problem.
last-minute cancellation, so it was awesome to get you guys here.
Great.
I know, in the nick of time, too. It was something where Steph and I talked to each other. We're like, what are we going to do? And I said, let's get the chins on. So that's pretty much how it went down. So thanks very much, last minute.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
So how's everything going?
It's going.
Not bad. Yeah. I'm just waiting for some of my events to come through, but in the meantime, just doing local investigations for our team.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What you guys been up to?
Lots of different things.
A lot.
We just finished our recent legend tripping event, so for everybody at home that doesn't know what legend tripping is, definitely join us next time. You get to investigate, I guess you could say, lectures, dinner, readings, yes, on haunted locations, very historical haunted locations that you can't normally get into on your own. So that's awesome. We have 3 coming up.
3 coming up. We just came off the boat from the USS Salem in Quincy, Mass. That was
It's our first time on land.
Yes. So we were able to go on there.
I don't know what it is. Make it stop.
I don't know.
Sorry about
It
that.
made me nervous. I froze like a
Sorry.
deer.
It's been one of those days.
Maybe a little fawn.
It was an emergency alert for the
Oh,
weather.
Oh.
I guess it's a big flash flood warning. I don't know. I didn't check it, but as you can tell, we all look like wet rats.
Exactly. Greasy, wet.
No, you guys look like you had big raincoats because we don't
We
look as
also
good
got
as you.
here like an hour earlier, so we had
Oh
time to,
yes,
dry
yeah. No,
off a
it
little
was
bit.
not good. I'm soaked. You could wring my clothes out right now, but that unfortunately, I don't know how that happened, but it was a weather alert.
I got nervous. I was
too.
like, oh no, fire alarm!
It would be awesome if you acted on it.
Drop. What is it?
Tornado
Stop,
warning.
drop, and roll.
There you go. That's
Stop, drop, and roll. Roll
you
out
know
of the
that only
studio.
works when you're
On fire?
when you're on fire. I'm sorry.
Couldn't be rolling in the water. But,
Oh, my God.
I mean, that sums up the USS Salem in the water. So, yeah, that was an exciting night. That was the first time for the Legend Trips group to go and actually experience it. I know that this USS Salem has been on a couple different shows, so
Yep.
it was neat to go and check things out there.
How was it though?
It was a good night.
Yeah, it was a good night.
It was
Have you
a
guys
good
been
night.
on?
Yes.
I've been twice.
Oh.
And it's a nice boat. It's a good size. A little dangerous though, because if you don't watch where you're
walk,
stepping,
right?
you like
Yeah, they don't
fall.
have a lot of those places covered that normally they should.
Yeah,
Right.
You can just step into a big old hole.
definitely.
Or even going through room to room, there's a
lift.
little lift, and
Yep.
so I caught myself constantly like, oh, watch out, oh, watch out.
Always
But-
bring a flashlight.
Always.
Have you ever had an experience there?
Yeah, we were in the infirmary where the beds were, and we were hearing footsteps and voices that sounded like a woman that was in there. And then in one of the surgical rooms where I guess somebody was in labor and they died, we got some odd readings in there and bangs and sounds.
But actually, those are the 2 places that Tiffany and I, the first time we went, had experiences. It was actually like the number 1 and number 2 spots that we were at that we got different things happening to us. So
Exactly, and it was during, I don't know if it was during the tour or if it was during when we were actually investigating.
I think it was actual investigation, especially the infirmary. And we were
Right.
trying to find it because we'd only been on the ship once. And we were both talking about it because it wasn't part of the zones that people were in. Like, you could go in, but it wasn't shown automatically to us. And we found it, I think, 5 minutes before the event was over?
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, I think that's where we were last time. We had no time to go down there, but we had a few experiences down there, so that was a good time.
It's a
Place
huge
is
ship.
huge.
717
Yeah.
You
feet.
take the wrong turn
Yeah.
and forget it. You're on another
Yeah.
spot, you know.
Yeah.
So,
It was a beautiful night, though. I mean, the first time we went, it was in November. It was so cold, and when we got there this past Saturday, it was so hot because you're in, the belly of the ship, and so we were all again, looking a little greasy. And
Well, everybody was sweating.
it was
when
so
you guys
bad.
first got
But then
there.
at night, by the time we left, it was just so nice to get out on the deck and do a little walking around and so forth.
I'd love to go back again. I only went that one time with Joe on the event,
Excuse me.
and we were busy with the group.
Yeah.
So it was hard just to kind of take the tour.
It'd be cool to
Right.
kind
Everybody.
of spend some time alone in there and do
Oh,
like
yeah,
a walkthrough.
definitely.
Yeah.
Love it.
Because I think both times we went with, you know, serious investigators that have all their gadgets and their
Mm-hmm.
electrical equipment and stuff. But what Tiffany and I do is totally different from all that.
Right.
So to kind of be able to do that without people doing one of these with a K2 in your face
Yeah.
is a little bit easier.
68, 68.
Yeah.
We got a spike. We got a spike. And I'm like, stop. You're
Yeah.
confusing me.
Yep. So it'd be cool to kind of just, you know, have some quiet time and just sit and see what happens.
Yeah, because when you do events on this ship, you're with like 10, 15 people sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's hard.
And everybody with different equipment, and they're all trying to like use it all at once, and you're like, whoa, what are you doing? You know?
It gives me complete like sensory overload.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
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 You know
Yeah.
what we should do? I got an idea. You guys should do the lead off on the investigation there. We follow you around with no equipment.
See, I love that idea too because I feel like way back before any of this, you had a flashlight, you maybe had a camera, and you had your senses.
Right.
And that's what you relied on.
Yes.
And I think that's what people lose sight of the fact of you don't need a K2 or an EMF meter or a Mel meter or those brand new things that have lights
Yeah.
that light up if a ghost is coming close. I tell people all the time, if you have 10 different gadgets in front of you, none of them could be going off, but you could have 20 spirits standing in
Right,
front of you.
right, yeah.
You need to, you know, kind of listen to yourself and listen to your body. They know best. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Do you have the goosebumps? Is your hair standing on end? Like, that's the most important because our bodies feel things a lot easier than something electrical. So,
Oh, I have to admit, I'm old school.
Me too.
Me too.
investigator. I go in with
Me
my
too.
flashlight, my recorder, and maybe now a laser pointer, because sometimes you're in the dark and you're trying to point, and you're like, where are you pointing to?
Yep.
You know? So, but other than that, that's what I like
I think
using.
it's the best way. I mean, I might be biased, but before I let anybody know about any abilities that I might have had, I kind of snuck in with paranormal groups just to get into places and to
Right.
see things. And they would ask me to like hold a ghost meter and a K2 meter and have all these different things, and I could not pay attention to them to save my life because a light doesn't do anything for me.
Right.
If it's beeping, you know, that can go off. And I think the worst part is you don't have to debunk a personal experience because you know
Right.
something just happened to you. You kind of have to debunk the electrical
Right. You do.
because you need to find out if, you know, is there something physical that's causing it. So,
I love it. I actually just spoke with a woman that we were meeting to on the ship today.
Did you?
And we were talking about that. And she said when she first started, she relied heavily on the equipment. And then the more investigations that she went on, she started relying less on it. And then she started to notice that she started to become more in tuned with things that going on around her.
Right.
And she would start to get certain names that would appear on the investigation through a Mel meter, right? That okay. I'm hoping I'm using the equipment correctly, and that's what I said. I go, "Yeah, well, you're exposing yourself a lot to, you know, opening yourself up, and once you kind of open yourself up, you don't really go back to it. So
Right.
your body's going to start to tune in." And I think that's great, and it's just kind of like how everything starts to evolve if you allow it to.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I mean, because sometimes when you're on investigation, the more cases that you do and the more investigations that you go on, you tend to pick up more of your sensory from your body. Like you
Right.
said, the goosebumps, the voices that you hear that sometimes the voice recorder can't pick up.
right.
You know, and I think it opens you up to experience what you guys experience on
Absolutely.
some level.
You train your body almost to start getting used to it, just like
Yep.
anything else you would. So it
See,
is cool.
Sometimes with that, though, it's hard for you guys to explain unless you're dead on. Unless someone knows that for certain that what you guys are saying is legit.
Yep.
Like I had my first reading with Tiffany, when she hit on some stuff, you're like, wow. You know, but people don't realize that, so they utilize the equipment to kind of confirm. And that's okay. I'm not trying to knock any paranormal group out there
Right.
to say that, you know, the equipment that you use, that's fine. But I think there are some investigators that go out with multitudes of, like I've had members that have Mel meters and the REM pod and this, and then
That's what
everything's
it is,
going
that
off, and then you're like,
light up thing.
you're juggling, and then now you're not paying attention to the things that you need to
Right.
pay attention to,
It's
because you're
very
too busy
true.
like fumbling.
Right, like
or-
this one needs batteries, this one doesn't. It's like,
Exactly. Even with, cameras, I don't even like the, using mini DV.
Mini TV.
Because you gotta change, every hour, you gotta change the tape. And now
Yep.
you're constantly thinking, okay, I'm on a time thing here, so.
Yep.
But,
Some people, like, that's their thing. Like, we worked with a bunch of people that recording is their thing, and then audio recording is their thing, and that's what they're excellent at.
Right.
But that's totally okay. Like, everybody has their own little niche in the paranormal world, and I think that's great. Tiffany and I just happen to be our abilities. So, but I love hearing, like, EVPs, I think, are my favorite.
Yes.
Afterwards.
Oh,
We've-
yeah.
we've
especially
heard-
when we do them.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because we'll ask a question and you'll hear very clearly, like Class A EVP is them responding to our question. I think you can't get that anywhere else.
No.
And I think we might be biased, but that's why I think you should have someone with abilities on an investigation to kind of hear the back and forth conversation. I think that's the best evidence you're going to get unless you get a full body apparition picture. But even then, it's tough to prove what you actually experienced is what it is, unless you were there to experience it yourself.
Right.
And that's
So-
why they rely on the technology.
Yep.
I think the first investigation that the four of us did together was at the Payne House.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure you were there too,
She
right?
was there, 'cause I
It was-
remember.
I don't-
Because I remember I was sitting next to Joe, and we were in the room with the rocking chair.
Yes.
And I
Oh,
could have
yep, that's
sworn,
right.
okay, so wasn't it all four of us like sitting in a row?
I think we were all in
the
a row.
hall?
Christine had her back to us. I think I was back to back with
Right.
you. And I remember thinking, like, oh, I was so tired. And I kept closing my eyes and I was falling asleep. And then I realized, I think it was Pete Stagman had his infrared camera going on me. So if anybody ever watches that, you're going to see me sleeping in the dark. But I was so
You
tired.
could just say that you were tuning in.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
all. Shh, don't tell anybody. But yeah, I was so tired. But yeah, I remember that night.
But you know what? The one thing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you actually confirmed something for me from one of my senses, because one of my feelings was, at that moment, was I remember I said, I feel a guy present and he's standing behind you. And I said, Stephanie, can you confirm that? And you were like, yep. And
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
it was in
"Oh."
that doorway.
Yeah.
Where all the
Yep.
dresses were.
I'm like, yes. I'm like, well, and that excited me because I knew that my
Right.
senses were opening, and I
And
loved
do you
it.
feel like your senses from doing all these investigations,
Oh.
do you feel like your senses have opened up and?
I think right now, honestly, I think it opened up a little too much, because now it's like, okay, now I got to try to put that white bubble around me,
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this before, but a lot of things have happened since.
Right. Well, the more you kind of hang out with people like this, the more your mind kind of
Right.
I tell people this all the time. If you hang out with us, your mind's just going to keep opening up, and the more questions you ask, you're opening your mind up. You're kind of breaking down that brick wall that you've had up for all these years about, is this real, is it not real, and you start having experiences. So
Now, do you think that it happens to people only who may have abilities, or is it that somebody who doesn't have any abilities can develop it?
everybody has some sort of intuition. So depending on, and I actually just explained this the other night. I was at a cookout and somebody pulled me aside and asked me if they could pick my brain for a while. And that feeling like your phone rings, I bet you I know who it is, and then it's the person that you thought, that's your intuition. If you start thinking about somebody that maybe you haven't seen in a while, like they just randomly pop into your head or you have a dream about them, then you run into them 1 or 2 days later, that's your intuition kind of giving you a heads up. That gut feeling that you have, like I really shouldn't do this today, then you come to find out that there's a reason why, like maybe there was a car accident, you shouldn't have left the house that day, right where you normally go. That was my foot, sorry. Stuff like that is your intuition. Everybody has that. Depending on if you want to develop that, great. There's some people that will try so hard for their whole entire lives and they'll never be able to get anywhere because either they're not meant to or they're just so focused on this is what I want to do. They might not have the right intentions,
Okay.
different things like that. They might just not be able to. But there's people that really work toward it and that's what they end up doing. Like that's what Tiffany did. She just decided that this is my path, this is what I want to do, and she was able to do it. But there are some people that they can try and they might just be able to get it.
It's like
This far.
athletes. That's the best way to describe it. It's
Right.
like athletes. Like most of us, I think, have tried to play a sport at some point in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some of us that would go to every practice, every summer camp, every facility that they possibly could go to play this particular sport. And then you have people that took the whole summer off and could just run like 2 miles in 13 minutes and be like, okay, this
Become
is
natural.
great. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just like a natural thing for them. but for some people, it doesn't matter how much you try, you're probably never going to be as athletic as that person.
Right.
Not
So
for
that's-
me.
Oh, you're athletic?
No. No.
For
no,
me, I'm kind of like Pele.
what I was trying to say is, I didn't try to have any kind of senses or at all, but it seems to just come slowly but
Yep.
surely, and then sure enough, sometimes you would get those flashes of imagery. I'm like, why didn't I just see a picture of this woman in the door?
Right.
And I didn't think I had any abilities at all. But I think because I do it so often,
Right.
that maybe it's starting to open, and
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'm opening it or if it's just happening.
I think your subconscious is opening it because it's almost like you're practicing the same thing over and over again. And what we do is like practicing an instrument almost. I was born with my gift. I didn't know, and I tell people all the time, like how celebrities' children don't know they're famous and they don't understand. That's how I was. I didn't know I was psychic. I just dealt with this my whole life. If I were to go out and continuously practice this over and over again, it's going to excel no matter what I do. But if I sit around, it's going to stay the same. Where different people that come in at different parts of their lives can practice, and get to where I am or not get to where I am. It's different. Like Tiffany said,
Right.
all athletes, like you have a whole team. You know who's the best no matter what they do, and you know the person that tries their hardest and stays at the same level that they are. But the more you expose yourself to the paranormal, I think Matt Manise said it, or Andy Lake, I can't remember. Every time you walk toward the paranormal takes 2 steps towards you. So you take 1 step, it takes 2 steps towards you. So it's you're looking, you're opening yourself up more and more and more, and it's coming closer and closer to you. So.
Wow.
And it was a good way of putting it, because we do that all the time. Like, the more I do things, I can ignore my gift till kingdom come. I was so good at ignoring it because I wanted no part of it for a large part of my life, and I felt like it kind of hindered like my social life, and I wanted to go out and have fun with my friends as a teenager. I didn't want to sit around and do readings or deal with ghosts or anything like that, and it almost slapped me upside the head after a while. Actually, literally, I had a tissue box thrown at my head at one point.
Wow.
Pay attention,
I got a
Steph.
phone call to come help teach a class, and I didn't want to. And I was sitting there, I'm like, I'm not going to go tonight. Boom, got hit in the head with a tissue box. And I was like, all right, I'll go. And that kind of is what started, like, all right, I guess I'll do it. And then it just became more and more of a love. Like, I accepted who I was, because that was a huge issue with me. I didn't want anybody to know what I could do. I didn't want people to, that have known me for 20 years and say, really? You never told us? We don't believe you. And that was my biggest fear. So the more you deal with it, the more it's going to happen. And I still,
The more you own it.
Yep.
Like I've had it too, but it wasn't as, we always talk about this, and for Steph, like, she was able to identify it, like I didn't. Like, I just thought, I have a bad case of ADD, or I just,
Well,
I
you do.
couldn't. I do. But, like,
please
I
don't try to
couldn't.
kid yourself.
I always had, like, the sense, but again, I grew up on a very, like, black and white style family where nothing was that gray matter. It was just, it is or it isn't, and that's it, and I know for me, once I started to hone in on it and harness it, I talked about it a lot, but I was also older than Steph. Steph was younger when she first discovered it, and I was older when I was able to piece it.
20s,
Yeah. So I was able to, at that point in my life, I was like, yep, this is what I do. And it's funny because I was at a cookout this weekend, and I was getting ready to leave, and someone's like, wait a minute. It was people from where I grew up, and they said, wait, you're a medium? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. And I'm like, and you never knew that? Like, you never knew? And it was funny because kind of like what you were saying, how people, before the first 20 years, they didn't know that's what you could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, I actually got a reaction from someone that was like, wait a minute, this is what you're doing?
I still get that reaction all the time because I still
Yeah.
don't talk about it, but it's kind of like,
It's personal, right?
yeah, it's almost weird. Like, now I'm at the point where, yeah, I can prove you wrong if I want to, but I'm not a circus
Yeah.
act,
Right.
so I'm not
That's
going
my
to.
next question.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel
Is there
like-
anybody around me? Huh?
Oh, I was just saying that the other day. The worst question we get is, so, this is what you do? Well, can you tell me who's around me right now?
Yeah.
Like, no, I can't. I'm in the middle of Stop and Shop. Leave me alone.
Right.
No, no, I don't want to do that. Thank you. But it can get really awkward, and then there's times where somebody will ask, and like they need that at that moment, and you'll make an exception for it. But
Right.
I tell people all the time, I'm not a sideshow freak. I'm not a circus act. Do not treat me like that. I am not the bearded lady. I'm not a dragon. I'm not anything. Like, go away.
I got a question for you, ladies.
Yep.
Have you ever had a time in your life when you did say something and you were picked on or harassed by it, or any kind of emotional damage from that? Because just being a ghost hunter, you kind of go out there and people look, okay, you talk about
You're a
ghosts.
weirdo.
Okay, you're a
Stay
weirdo.
clear
Let's go.
from you. You look
Yeah.
weirdo.
What are
When
your
I-
experiences?
Not so much with my, well, I guess it goes hand in hand, but when I was working, a couple of the jobs that I've worked at, I would ask for time off to go to Waverly.
Oops,
Ooh,
sorry,
that was you.
that was
Usually
my
it's me.
It's usually Tiff.
It's me.
I would ask time off to go to like Waverly Hills Sanitarium in Kentucky, and they'd say, "Well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you ghost hunting? What's going on?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, that's what I'm doing." What are you doing? Building a shed? You know, and like I could care less what they do on the weekends, like, but they always kind of had that. Oh well, what are you doing? Going ghost hunting? What do you see around me? I don't talk to the dead, and just like in that tone too. And I just say, well, all right, well,
It's a shame.
that's cool.
See, I think I've
Just-
had the opposite. Like, I haven't had people make fun of me, but I think people will know that I'd probably rip them to shreds in about 5
Yeah.
minutes if they did. But I almost deal with the opposite, where people are so fascinated by it, they get more and more into the conversation than they expect something free out of it. And because I've never really had anyone be like, oh, that's what you do, because like I said, I can prove you wrong, like that'd be fine. But I'm usually surrounded by a lot of people that I have done something in front of, so they're there to vouch for me. Or doing what I do, or like if you Google our names, you can see that we've done stuff, you know, there's videos and stuff like that. So it's not anything that at this point, because that was a long time ago for you. That was probably like 10 years ago when you went through that.
No. Well,
Yeah, it was at your old job.
yeah, but this was like five.
You were still pretty new into everything at that
Clearly,
point,
yeah,
too.
like 5
But,
years ago, doing all that.
A lot of people know, like people that I deal with at least, know like my mother had the gift, and then my grandmother did. People that knew my grandmother too. So, but meeting people out, and like just anyone, they'll ask me things. Like people that I was working with at a time that I didn't even like were asking me so many questions and then expected something free from it. It's like, just because you work with me doesn't mean that you're going to get something
Right.
for free.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You know, you can't take advantage of the fact that I'm telling you things. Or I used to have people come up to me at work all the time when I still worked a full-time job, and well, a desk job, I should say, and they just say like, can you just give me insight on my life right now, or can you just tell me this or tell me that? And no, like I'm doing my paperwork right now. Go away. You can make an appointment with me outside of work. But people just start to, and I think that's an issue too. I don't know if you've noticed that, but people try to get close to you so they can be that friend that will get all the information or like reap all the benefits. And
Or you don't talk to them for months, and all of a sudden it's, hey,
it's just
like they'll
wondering-
ignore your texts, and then all of a sudden it'll be like,
Yeah.
hey, I got into a new relationship. Do you see anything? And it's like, I don't want to see anything, so no, I don't.
Right. It's just,
You know.
it can get really weird and go right back to I'm not a circus act. I am not here to prove anything to
Well,
anyone.
let me ask you guys something then, because, I mean, we, talking about our gifts, especially with Joe, you being on a show, you know, and Christine, you work right next to Joe all the time. Do you guys, how do I want to phrase this question? My mind just went blank. I'm sorry. But, do you have people from your past that all of a sudden invite themselves into your future, or want to invite themselves into your future?
Yeah, and,
because
you
of
know,
that?
because I was on a show, and people have seen the show, and the word gets out that people will come out of the woodworks that you haven't talked to in
Yep.
years, and
Relatives.
hey, I hear you doing this, and how is it? Can you bring me with you?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I can't bring
You're
you
like,
with
Tip,
me.
Tip already
Sorry.
asked me that.
I actually had that happen. Yeah, you're good for that.
I am like,
She's a self-inviter no matter where we go. When that's actually how we ended up working with one of the groups that we work with now that you guys work with. Tiff self-invited herself. And that's how we
Which
got involved.
one?
Do you want me to mention it?
Yeah.
Rise up.
What did I tell them? I probably did. I'd like to go.
That's exactly what you did to
Yeah.
Ken. And Ken invited us somewhere, and then we ended
Oh
up being friends
yes,
with him.
I remember. He's like, you set a date.
So that's
and
kind
I'm
of like how we
"All
met you guys, because it was really random, but that's how it happened.
That's how I did. I'd
Yeah.
like to do it. If
She
you
was
ever
a-
need any help, you let me
She
know.
was a self-inviter. That's just what we know Tiff for.
You know, that works for her.
Yep, it works
Yeah.
for her.
It
I'm
works
like,
for
you
her,
go right
so-
ahead. She'll ask me if I go, and I always have to say, Tiff, did you self-invite yourself? Are we going to show up and be really embarrassed, or is this an actual invitation? I say it all the time because you don't want to show up and like be the weird one that everybody's looking at you like, why are you here?
You know
Because it's
what?
happened.
I mean, I've invited myself to plenty of
Yeah.
things, and I'm not going to be ashamed to admit that. But you know what? I don't care. I'm there to support whoever's there.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
But I feel that, we were supposed to meet, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
You
I
know,
do.
I
I feel
know
You
that.
guys are
Nothing
supposed to come to
happens.
Messina with me. These two
Oh,
drove
you meet the
8+
people?
hours each way with this one in the
Oh.
back seat.
You're
Yes.
just still pretending to be her friend after that.
But I kinda
I had him
believe
sign a
that,
contract.
that You meet the people that you're supposed to meet.
Absolutely. That situation worked out well. There have been other situations where there was a self-invitation that we were definitely the sideshow freaks at. Like,
Yeah.
who are these two and why are they here? And I have to, like, I think later on the car ride home, I learned that she just kind of said, hey, if you need anything, we can show up. So, like, you didn't tell me ahead of time. No wonder they were looking at us like we had 3 heads. So, yeah, that gets...
Because I'm always like, oh, that sounds like fun. What, in the middle of the woods with our
Yeah.
with blindfolds on? Yes.
Now, I have another
Yeah.
question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
With your legend trips, now, do you do other things like, cryptozoology or like UFO things, or is it just strictly...
Right now, I think
Paranormal.
it's paranormal. Certain locations can have, like obviously the USS Salem didn't have an alien problem, but I mean, you can go to a different event that might have like a crossover type thing. Like it might be ghosts, but it might be some Bigfoot at the same time.
No,
I wouldn't.
sorry.
No, no, I was gonna say I wouldn't be surprised if Legend Trips does something with the Bridgewater Triangle, which has a lot of cryptozoology
That would be
facts.
awesome.
You
No,
know,
I was
so
curious on like the cryptozoology, like Bigfoot or, Loch Ness, or UFOs. Like, would your abilities come into play at that point, do you think?
I have been brought on different things already pertaining to those two things that they have. I don't necessarily like it. That's why I have a fear of aliens.
Okay.
So I do. I'm terrified of aliens.
Wow.
But I've been brought in on cases where people have had issues and different things like that, and I later on find out that is why they're having an issue. So yes, I do know people that deal with that stuff a lot, and I have dealt with different things like that. But as far as legend tripping goes, I think, I mean, one of the main, people that do legend trips is Matt Manise. He does all crypto stuff, all UFO, and that's his thing. Like, he's really good at that. And so I wouldn't count it out for the future that there might
Right,
be
I'm
a
pretty
location
sure
that
it'll
might
probably
have
happen.
ghosts, but that too.
Watch this, Joe. Now we're going to do our little self-invite. Joe and I are going to be there, right?
okay, yeah, sure. Hey, I can bring out a Legend Trip my own. I'm not gonna.
Self-invite, hey!
Well, I was just gonna. Then I realized that you guys are watching at home, so I'll just zip my lip.
Zip my lip.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Do we have anything coming through? Anyone?
No.
Yeah.
Chat?
And also, if you guys
Just
want to,
regular chats.
if you guys want to call us, it's 781-281-8433.
There you go.
I know.
me.
Where's the beef? I just thought of that. Yeah, I mean, I think Steph and I always talk about doing our own little road trips and stuff, and
We have a list.
We have a list
We shouldn't
of
say we
things.
talk about little road trips.
we should. You know what we need to do is just write
We
things
need to write
down
them
and then
down.
say
We
we've
meet
been
people,
here, we've
and
done
then
this.
they'll say, come visit us, and there'll be like a really cool event or something, and then we just don't go, because either, I don't even know what happens, but we have like a whole list of things that we want to do, and we don't ever end up doing it.
Right.
So
I know.
I
Let's take
partially blame
baby
you.
steps. Let's take the closest one. What do you guys want to do first? If you had to think right now. No.
Something unplanned. Oh,
See, this is why we don't go.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
I'm
learned
like,
this. Messina trip.
Oh, yes. Oh,
This
yes.
isn't in my plans. My plans that I made at 12 p.m. this
There's
afternoon
You
says.
talk about white bubble, there's an anxiety bubble.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
it's
I-
hard to break through.
Oh,
I've been
I
training her for
tried.
years. We're doing very well. I realize that
Well, then you need to
positive
share that
reinforcement with
information with
food
me,
works
okay?
very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Food. If you feed her treats, she does what you need her to do.
Yeah. Let's think of something. Go.
You go. We just asked you.
Yeah, we just asked you.
Okay. No questions.
All right.
Something that you've wanted to do. Any place you've wanted
Time's
to
up.
explore.
You know what place I'd like to go to, which we can't get into, is Rocky Point. As of yet,
Really?
we can't get into Rocky Point as of yet.
Of
What's
all
at Rocky
places,
Point?
what's at Rocky Point? Yeah, that just kind of.
I just think because there's a lot of history behind it too, as far as there has been deaths there.
Oh yeah, right.
We've had Jason Mayo on, and he's loves Rocky Point.
But
so
just
he
because
shared
there's
stories.
deaths doesn't mean there's
Right, it's
anything.
not just deaths, but I just think the fact going through like an abandoned amusement park sounds pretty neat.
Really?
Lifetime movie-ish. But that would probably be difficult to get into.
I get excited about pretty much anything.
Yeah, there's so many avenues that I haven't even explored that I'm not even aware of. Like the Pain House. I never heard of the Pain House until I met Ken and Dave DaCosta. And
Awesome
Great
guys.
you know,
Nice.
and exactly, and so now we can go to the Pain House anytime we want, pretty much. You know, so it's just something that
I think some of the most profound stuff that happens to us is on trips that we don't ever expect anything out of. Like
Right.
we just show up and then something spectacular happens. Like
Right.
that one place that we went to with Ken, that store.
right.
And it was one of the most strangest but interesting experiences of our lives. The store owners were responding so hysterically to what we were saying that we weren't even sure if we should like continue the reading. And it was extremely I don't
Intense.
want to say like intense, but like theatrical, but they weren't faking it. Like they were just very
Right.
involved, and we were looking at each other, like elbowing each other, like we should stop the reading or should we not? And it was just because what we were bringing up was,
It was very
out of this world.
personal.
Yeah.
It was very personal to them.
but it wasn't supposed to happen that way. We were just there to read the location. But what people don't realize is once we're done with the spirits of the location, we're still on.
Right.
So if you're standing there, things can happen. And that's happened to, actually it happened when we were trying to film for something. We were just doing like a little video, and all of a sudden the 3 people that were with us were just kind of like, hey, we're picking up on stuff. And that turned into almost an hour reading them. But it happens a lot.
Right. Right.
So anything can happen. But I feel like all of that is supposed to happen the way it is.
Exactly.
Yes.
And another thing, you know, going to all these different locations, most of them aren't the big name locations that you hear about.
Right.
You know, a lot of times it's at a residence house, or I should just say at a residence, or some special area in the woods, or sounds so shady, but
You are shady.
yeah.
I don't know if I should be frightened. I'm just gonna move.
Do you guys want to go to that special area in the
It's safer.
woods?
Come down.
She brings you in. Don't know if you're coming back out.
You know? But I think
So-
probably one of my favorite things to do is go to a historical place that somebody's dug up the research on, so that way when we do our readings, we can be easily validated. Or
I
know,
love working historical
Yeah,
societies.
not even just that, just historic places that have backgrounds, or historic places that there's stuff in like the town records from 1700s or 1600s, or different things like that, where somebody knows the history, and you could have like a jumbled up piece of history, and we can put the pieces together for them, and I think that's really cool. Like I don't necessarily love the personal readings, you can only get so far with that, and you can help people with that. That's great, but when you're helping put history back together, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, of course.
Again, I always say that we always piece the emotional aspect to it from something, from just the straight hard facts, And it's always nice to piece it. Because we have facts, but there's so much more. Like I can say, Joe, you were born December, I don't know when you were born, December, blah, 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 Joe Chin was born December, his favorite color is green, and he likes dolphins,
Wow.
All the things she likes.
Is there a rainbow over there?
You're like, da, 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 da.
Right. Put on my tap.
Yeah.
You have a dolphin hanging from your car.
Welcome to
But
the world
anyway,
of tips and rice. This is like this every day.
but
Unicorns and glitter. Yay.
and he's wearing a mood ring.
Oh my god.
No, we're not going there.
What's my mood today? Ka-ching.
You're doing so
sorry.
well.
With only 20 minutes left.
Yeah,
What's
I
gonna happen?
know.
We almost got through.
But
Almost.
like in however old you are, Oh, being a friend, I don't know much about you at all. But
Obviously not.
I'm kidding. I'm keeping everything private. But from the day you were born till now, there has been so many like happy moments, sad moments, all different types of emotional aspects in your life that usually Steph and I would pick up on if we were giving someone a reading or doing a reading on a location. That's the emotional aspect that I'm talking about, you know, and for people that study that hard facts, like, oh, Joe Chin was born on this and blah, blah, blah. And then myself or Steph could say, okay, Joe, you know, his personality was actually, he was kind of angry all the time.
What the heck are you doing to this poor guy? Seriously.
Angry, right?
And I'm not saying that he's usually angry,
A
but
Disney cap unicorn to-
How is
to
he
a
angry
frog,
if he likes
like-
unicorns, glitters, and dolphins? You can't be angry if you're into that. And if your favorite color is green, I mean, we're just going on.
okay, just, yeah.
stop picking on
Well,
poor
you
Joe.
know, I guess Joe Chin was a happy man.
Because he loves unicorns.
He enjoyed skipping down the yellow brick road and
Oh, great. No,
in
she's
his
got your little
past.
Yeah, well, we pick up on that
Right.
stuff, but they can give us information too, like specific information.
Now, have you had things backfire on you guys that you bring up to a client and then they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want you to talk about that, and
Yep,
Yeah.
Wow.
yep. A lot of times,
don't get up
Those
and
are the
walk
type of
away.
people that have skeletons in their closet that they think they're going to prove a psychic wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when we start going too far into something that they don't want to discuss or they're lying to themselves about,
and they'll just shut us off.
yeah.
No, no.
But that's what you have to realize.
Yeah.
Like, if you have something to hide, this is not the person you want to be
Yeah,
talking
right.
to.
Right, and they don't beat around, the spirit doesn't beat around the bush either, so
No.
they'll tell you exactly how it is.
Yes.
So.
But it's not every spirit. Like, you have some spirits that will not bring up a certain time in the life or certain, you know, like how they died or something like that. They'll keep things private too if they want to, or if they know like the person that's sitting there isn't comfortable talking about something. But it's usually the skeptics that do not believe in what we do, and they almost poke us on purpose to see if we're fake or not. When we start bringing up stuff they get really uncomfortable about, then it's like an automatic shutdown.
Since I've met you guys, I have to say that I appreciate that you don't go around just reading anybody. That's invasion of
Yes.
privacy.
I
That's
think so.
also obnoxious.
You know, I
We know people that do it.
Right.
Oh, I've heard of people that do it, and I just think it's weird.
just think it is rude because I've
Yeah.
had people come up to me and just, I'm like, you know what? I haven't even been in this area, in this particular room for 5 minutes, and you're like in my face.
It's because your name is attached to someone that's been on television. It's because they want to get closer to you, or your name's just attached to TAP's home team. That's something that's been on TV. People look to you like, oh, maybe if I just like, it's almost like if you're at like a singing competition, you just start singing randomly, hoping somebody will hear you.
Yeah.
It's just they want you to discover them so that way you make them a part of what you're doing, and all they're looking for is their 15 minutes. And it's really sad.
But you know what? That doesn't get, I mean, for me.
It doesn't get any
Not
you
for
anywhere.
me.
If somebody did it to me, I'd be
That's a
like,
turn off.
cool.
That's, you know what?
You can go away now.
Yeah,
I've
no.
experienced both. I've experienced people who respect my privacy and say, you know, I didn't want to say anything to you, but I am picking up on something. You know, do you mind if I tell you what that is?
Yeah.
And if they approach me that way, then I'm fine with it.
Right.
But then I have all people come up to me and just blurt out stuff, and I'm like,
See, I don't do
See,
it unless I'm asked.
I don't even agree with that. If someone comes up to me and says, you know, I have something that comes through, for me, that you just crossed the line already. You just read me without even me knowing, and now you're going to tell me.
Bottom
Well, I
line,
don't
they
know if-
probably didn't even really read you.
Yeah.
They probably
Right.
just
I think it's the
cold-reading you.
spirit.
Yeah.
Okay.
telling them, go talk to him, go talk to him. go
Sometimes
talk
that
to him.
absolutely happens, and there's times where I've actually, I think it happened, I'm trying to think of the time when I was with you, when we were reading the Chase Corey house with Ken. Remember I
Yeah.
kept saying, like, I just blurted out, like, who's so-and-so? And it was the guy that was standing next
Right,
to me.
right.
And it didn't, like, we were reading the location, but this guy didn't want to be read, but I brought it up. It was his grandmother that was coming through to talk about his baby, because his wife was pregnant. He hadn't really told anybody yet, but then Tiff and I are kind of picking up, like, you're going to have this, you're going to, like, you know, just stuff like that. But I kept saying, like, I don't know if I should say anymore, because I'm not sure if he's, like, open to that or not. Like, we'll stop ourselves. Spirit can be yelling all they want, but I'm not going to cross the line with anybody.
You just reminded me of something. I did a reading party a couple weeks ago, and before we started, I was waiting. Everybody was getting settled, and there was this woman that was visibly pregnant. Although I wasn't going to say anything, you never know. So but she comes over to me, she goes, I just want you to know, don't tell me what the sex of my baby is. That's it. And so, which is funny because right before she said that, I walked out of the bathroom and I looked at her and I was like, oh, and if she's ever watching this, so I won't say it, I got the thought of like, oh, she's having a blah, 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 you know, and so in my mind, I was going to say something, and then before, thank heavens, I didn't, because she came over, she goes, by the way, I don't want to know what I'm having, and I'm like, okay, sip it, you know, so I didn't.
Well, that happened. One of my best friends did not want to find out the sex of her baby, and it drove me nuts because all I wanted to do was go buy a bunch of stuff for the baby. I knew from the minute she pretty much conceived, and she didn't want to know, but she would hit me up sometimes to almost trick me into telling her, and I'd have to. It was an awful 9 months. I had to constantly, like, you know how you just talk in the masculine form. Instead of saying it, you just say, like, he.
Right.
I would say that, so she'd go, well, does that mean it's a boy? And I'd have to then trick her again because it was actually a girl.
Right.
And I didn't want her to think I thought it was a girl or a boy, so I'd have to just backtrack, and it was a mess. But I had all of her family members and her close friends, like, pulling me to the side, like, so you're going to tell me what it is? I didn't even tell any of these people I had a gift, but she told them that I knew.
Oh.
So I said, look, I'm going to go home, I'm going to put it in an envelope, I'm going to seal the envelope for, like, my own validation. When your baby's born, you can open the envelope. I never gave it to her because I didn't need to. She knew I knew. But I went out and I bought, like, a bunch of, like, pink stuff. And I'm looking at my husband in the store, I'm like, how much do you trust my abilities right now? I'm about to spend a lot of money. We were right, obviously.
It's not
but
incredible.
you always have that self-doubt, like,
Right.
am I right? Are we sure I'm right? But yeah, and it was funny because, you know, I hit up Tiff, I hit up all kinds of people, like, am I right? Like, validating myself because I can't validate with her because I think the only person that knew that she was having a girl was her doctor, and that was it. Nobody was allowed to know. The husband didn't know, nobody. So it's torture. But
Now,
things,
are you guys always right, or is it like?
No.
I mean,
Yeah, I'll
no,
Right.
we're not always right, but
And sometimes I'll just joke, like, oh, it's a 50-50, right? You know,
Yeah.
when it comes to the sex of a baby and stuff.
I can't say
Yeah.
I've ever had, like, not to, like, pat myself on the back, but I don't usually open my mouth unless I know I'm right.
Okay.
Well, that's a
So-
good thing to practice.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to, you know.
Yep. So I bet I spent years, when I tell you years, of, like, if I thought I knew something, I'd write it down, and then I'd wait till it was validated and I didn't tell anybody. So I think from years of just practicing that over and over again, like, I won't open my mouth unless I'm right.
That's one of the questions I was asking Tiffany at one point. I'm like, how do you know when your abilities start to develop? Who do you go to develop that? You know, once you start, because I was starting to get some things happening. And,
Yep.
and I don't know if she's told you, but some things are happening, and
Mhm.
I've kind of confirmed it with her and try to find out. And it's the intuition.
Yep.
It's the thought. It's like right there. It's screaming at you. And
It's tough.
it's kind of like where I'll just stare off into space, and it kind of just grabs you. And it's hard to kind of like refocus again, but
Yes.
how am I going to validate that?
You have to find a really good friend that's going to help you with everything, because it's almost like everybody learns at their own pace and everybody has different gifts. Like Tiffany and I's gifts aren't the same at all.
Right.
So it's hard for me to say something to her because she doesn't understand where I'm coming from, where I might not necessarily understand where she's coming from, where she gets things. It's just, how do we get to that point? So you have to kind of understand how different people get to their conclusion, which can be a really difficult process. Like, I don't know, you'd have to almost tell me, like, how you're getting your information, or I'd have to work with you through different channels to see how you're getting your information, because you might not know yet.
Right.
It's really weird. We'll just put
It's
it that way.
fascinating
Yeah,
what you
it's
guys do.
I think
No,
so,
it's
too.
Very, very fascinating.
it's really different. And I tell people all the time, like, you might have the intuition, but you might not ever be able to connect to the other side.
Right.
Or you can connect to the other side, but you might not ever have any intuition.
Right.
And some people have both. How that happens, I have no idea.
It's just different. Everybody's on different levels, different wavelengths.
Yep.
So
I don't know. I don't know what we called it when I told you I get impressions and I sketch. We talked
Yep.
about that before. I don't even know what that is. But I don't know how to draw. All of a sudden.
That happens to a lot of people.
I just all of a sudden.
Mandy Avery does
Yep,
that.
Mandy does it. Yep.
And I would have to show Joe and my friend Steve, and
Yeah,
I'd be
look at
like,
those sketches. I'm like,
I'm
wow,
like-
that's really detailed.
I'm like,
Sketches,
this
like.
is what I
Yeah.
saw, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And if I don't get it on paper, it's not a validation for some reason. I don't feel comfortable. And it'll stay
But
in
that
my
might
head
be
until.
your thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, where I can't do that to save my life.
I can't sketch. It's
Forget
all
it.
stick figures.
I know. I'd be
I'm
like,
with you. I'm
this
with
is Billy,
Yeah, like a
and
crayon.
it's his horse. I mean, cat.
You know, I love art,
you. You
but
would. Seriously.
Yeah.
that's,
I like how Joe just looks over like, she's serious.
No, I'm looking at
I know, you're like, wow, really? How'd you know Billy
Welcome
had a
to my
cat?
world.
Yeah.
Welcome to my world. Like, I can't tell you,
But-
there's times where, and I've been noticing a lot more lately, I don't know how I get to where I get to. And I tell people all the time, I was born with my switch flipped on. I don't know how to flip it off because I can ignore it, but it, like I said, it slaps me upside the head. They'll get me in my dreams, they'll get me everywhere. Like, Tiff can have a peaceful night's sleep. I do not.
When I do sleep.
Right. But, like, yeah, but you're not sleeping is your own issues.
Right.
Like, it's not because you have people coming into your bedroom all night long looking for answers. Like, that's just how my life's been. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Sorry.
yes.
We're getting to that weird level that we've talked about. But that's just how my gift works. And I
So you
can...
never have a peaceful sleep?
Nope. Sometimes if ZQL's involved, yes. But other than that, like, not really, no.
No white bubble. That doesn't work for you.
Bubble doesn't work because
The light
it's not
switch still
negative.
on.
Yeah, it's still on. Bubble works against negative. I've had to, like, seriously say, like, okay, great, like, just let me go back to bed. But if it's, like, something urgent, they don't realize it's not time for that. They don't have time.
You don't have a sense of time.
So-
But you can't.
Really are.
What about boundaries? When your affirmative boundaries?
It works sometimes.
Sometimes.
If it's that, like, for instance, there was 3 nights in a row where I got absolutely no sleep whatsoever because my parents' friend's daughter passed in the middle of the night. Shows up in my bedroom. Hi, I know you. Why are you here? Wake up in the morning, find out that that's why. Next night, my parents' friend passed away. I know you too. Why are you here? It's almost like they get lost, they need to be crossed over. That's an urgency for them. So you kind of have to deal with it at that time because if you leave them floating around, what
Oh,
happens?
so you helped them cross
Yes.
over?
Yep. So,
Okay.
and then like the third night in a row, it was like my father's friend's friend that he knew or something like that. So it was like 3 nights in a row. I'm like, geez, like, please let's not go for a fourth. Like, this is crazy, but that's what happens. Like, they don't have, like, they're not patient because they don't know where they are, what's happened type
Right.
thing.
Oh, so they're
No
confused.
frequency of time
And they
either.
just automatically come to you because they know that you have this ability?
And I actually, like, I thought about this the other day. Like, I get it now why they call it a medium. You're the in-between between them and the other side.
Okay.
But it's like you've known that your whole life, but when it finally like validates itself, you're like, oh, I get it. I'm the closest thing to them. Like, it's almost like I'm a flashlight in the middle of the dark.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Or you're like the ferryman.
Yep.
See that?
Here, go
that-
see, here
Ferry.
for my ticket.
Yeah, yeah.
See,
It's
that's the
weird.
question, though.
I have-
I always thought in paranormal that they want to move on. Like, I
They
guess
do, but sometimes like if it's a really tragic event,
they can't.
it's almost like a big confusion. Like that's why spirits stay here. Like you're going into a haunted location.
Right.
They've been there since the 1700s. They might not know they're dead. They might just want to stay, or they might be waiting for something. Like a common thing too is like if they lose a child or something, they'll stay behind because they think that they're going to find their child. They don't realize the child's on the other side type thing. So you kind of almost have to make them realize like you have to go. So it can be a difficult process, but sometimes it's quick and easy. I remember I used to cross people over all the time in like a certain location. I'd go back, there'd be more waiting. It's almost like they knew. That's weird.
So they
Like,
just
wait,
come
it's
to
like a
you.
bus stop. That's what it felt
Wow.
like. For a while, I'd be like, oh my God, like I want to help you, but now I feel bad, like I have to come back here every day. But it's just, that's what happens to them. I don't know.
I just don't know the process of it. Like, how do you cross somebody over?
I don't know.
It's probably a whole
Did
nother
you-
show.
Yeah.
Oh,
I-
okay.
Whole
Yeah.
nother show,
It's a-
probably, right?
I learned how to, well, I didn't learn how to do it. I knew how to do it probably like 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I just kept doing it. And then actually it was really weird because I used to ask St. Michael for help all the time. And I was looking into getting like some sort of tattoo or something like that. I was looking up St. Michael, like a symbolism for that. And after, like, I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school, everything, the whole 9 yards. And as I'm looking through everything I'm reading, St. Michael is the founder of all lost souls. And he's the one that, you know, helps them over to the other side. I'm like, I get it now. Why I was working with him to do this, couldn't tell you. Happened in my head. But now, like, that was validation for me. It's like, I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
But unknowingly, I had no clue. So,
Now, do you see them crossing over?
yes. Yep.
What happens? Like, do they just a door opens up and then they go in?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
We gotta come back now.
I know, this is like a 2-segment
really
show.
Yeah, we have to. But,
I have a question for you guys, because you've seen us work in both, whether it's a paranormal location or a gallery reading or private reading. I mean, what's your view on that? How do you view, because you've experienced it?
I think what you guys do is really fascinating, and I get it. I get that, how you're able to hear them and get messages for the people who are left behind, like their family people, their family. I've seen you do your readings, and I think that's awesome. You touch so many people in so many ways, and you know, I think it's an awesome thing that you do. And with Stephanie, that now that I'm learning more about what you do, it's really fascinating. It's kind of like, I don't want to say that show on TV, but it's kind of like that. And to know that is real,
Yeah.
it's kind of like making me flip out a little bit.
Yeah, it's like it's breathtaking.
well, for me,
I
it
surprise
was.
myself sometimes.
I think it was that there was a lot of unanswered questions in my life that I needed to have answered. And when you ever read me and came through with my mother, that was a big part for me to heal. So what I think what you girls really do is you really you heal people. And, you know, I'm a big believer in that, you know, being a past medical assistant, always wanting to help somebody. That to me is a beautiful gift. And I
Thank you.
you know, I really, you know, sincerely believe that. And because if
Yes.
you can't shut it off, you know, you can, you know, that's,
Well, we tell
I feel
everybody all
bad,
the time,
you
like,
know.
we drive each other crazy.
Right.
Like, we act more like siblings than we do friends. But her abilities complement mine, just like mine complement hers.
Exactly.
Like, I can do some things that she can't, but then you flip it, and it's vice versa. Like, I'll walk into a room. I actually screamed. I almost tripped over Andy Lake and fell down the stairs because I can see them physically.
Yeah.
Just like I can see you and I, like, out in front of me, where she can see them inside her third eye. So she's walking in the room, like, charging there, like, no problem. I scream. I see this guy fly at me. I run down the stairs. Come to find out, that's where the homeowner fell down the stairs and later passed.
Oh.
So that's probably
Why he's charging at you.
right. So I'm screaming. I'm running out the house. Like, forget it. I don't want even want to deal with that right now because it scared the heck out of me. It was in the middle of the dark. And she's charged on in there. Like, this is times where her abilities are different. She can handle that situation where I'm flying out the door as fast as I possibly can. So it just little things like that. We just complement each other. And
Now, when you see them, like, do you
keep
see
going
them
about
like
this.
bloody and things like that?
No.
Or you just see their
it's
apparition?
almost, it depends on the level of energy they have too.
Okay.
Like if they passed over, they have more energy than an earthbound spirit.
Okay.
So they can look exactly like you or I. Like, you almost can't tell that they're dead. Like, a huge issue I have is when they cross the road and I slam on the brakes and there's nobody there. And it happens to my brother a lot too,
Okay.
because he has the same abilities that I do. It drives me absolutely insane. I've been on the phone with her and screamed at the top of my lungs, and be like, "Oh, just a ghost, keep going."
I've seen it in my mind's eye. Like, if there is blood involved, sometimes they'll show
Yeah,
me.
they'll show that,
Yeah, they'll
but-
show
They'll
that.
show you blood, or will they show you the actual wound?
The
that they
wound,
have?
the actual
Yep.
wound.
Oh, really?
That's how I'll say, okay, I'll feel it, and then I'll see it in my mind's eye.
Can you tell them I don't want to see it?
Well, they do it for a validation
Okay,
point
all right.
or confirmation, because a lot
There's
of
times
times
where-
people will have people that have passed tragically at the same type of tragic passing, but one might be a little bit different than the other. So that might be the key that they need to know, especially when you're just starting out doing a reading, that, oh, okay,
It could be
it's
too
that person
similar.
instead of this person.
Or dealing with an earthbound spirit. There was that time we were working that case with Andy where the spirit was showing me exactly how she passed, and I had to keep asking her, like, done, I'm
Yeah.
done, don't show me anymore, because it was so brutal.
Oh.
But she was just showing me, it was almost like a movie clip of her life, where, and I'm sure you'll agree with that, like, they'll show you, like, what happened and where it is, but if I see them physically out in front of me, it's just like they're, like you or I, like they're normal. Sometimes they're a little bit more dim than a real person, but, or like I'll see a black shadow first and then it'll turn into something else, so.
Now, is it ever so
He's
physical
gonna
that
keep
you can
going.
touch them?
There's some times where I have seen them like that, and I almost want to poke, like, because, you know, curiosity gets the best of you. Yeah, but they're usually gone before that happens. So,
We have
Yeah.
to. We definitely have to make this another.
Oh, yes.
I know,
We have to
I know,
have
because we
this
can just keep on
continuous. I can
going
keep
and
on
going.
It is 8
But
o'clock, so.
before we get leave, I just want to give a shout out to a new paranormal group out there. They're just
Okay.
starting. Okay, it's Generic Black Shirts Paranormal. Give a holla
Funny.
to those guys. If you
Holla.
yeah, holla. You can find them on Facebook, and you also go to paranormalafterlife.com. Check out their
Excellent.
site with the episodes.
I've seen some
Definite.
YouTube clips.
Well, it is 8 o'clock. We are over. They probably shut us off on TV already. So,
Surprisingly, we didn't lose power.
thank you everyone for watching. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, websites. You know, you can find us.
Just
anywhere.
Google us.
Yes.
There you go.
And if you haven't tuned in, you have to.
Yes.
Yes.
Same time.
And call in. We won't be here next week, but we will be back the week
2
after.
weeks. So find
2
us.
weeks.
Thanks for watching.
Have
See
a
you
good
later.
night.
Bye.
Good night.